Hello? Hello? Can you hear me in there? You probably can't move much, but tap twice if you can hear me. So you are awake. Good. Do you know where you are right now? Do you want me to tell you? You're dead, and you're buried underground. Would you like me to get you out? Are you sure? Just know that if I do, you'll owe me for the rest of your undead life. Alright then, as you wish. Allow me to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Cordelia, and I work at the local library. Not really because I want to. I'm not much of a reader, to be honest. But a job's a job, you know, and rent doesn't pay itself. The position was open to basically anyone. No real experience required. And since no one wants to go, and much less work in a dusty old place like that, they were just as desperate to get someone on the clock as I was to get some money. Those shelves haven't seen a new book in decades. All that's there, it's old donated picture books and archived newspaper clippings. I'm more so there so that the place doesn't seem abandoned and to actually do anything. The owner has some weird attachment to the building and refuses to sell it, but doesn't really want to do anything with it either, so it's just there. You could say I'm more of a security guard than a librarian at this point. So as you can imagine, having such a lame, quote-unquote job, I get bored really easily. So bored, in fact, that at some point I started reading through all local newspapers just to pass the time. I went backwards, starting from the last piece the local press ever printed before shutting down, and going back through the uneventful history of this surreal town. Event announcements, political campaigns, and occasionally some charity auctions. Nothing interesting seemed to ever have happened in this town. Until recently, I came across an interesting article. This town, being small as it is, suffers the same curse all small towns do. Everyone knows everyone. And since everyone knows everyone, everyone wants to know when someone dies. People are nosy like that. And so for some reason, the local press thought it was a good idea to dedicate a whole section of the newspaper to fulfill this morbid curiosity. I call it the daily obituary. In every daily print, the press dedicated a whole column to announce the death and upcoming memorial services of anyone who passed away, along with a little eulogy and a picture of the deceased. Their obituary would be printed day after day after day in the same column, until the next person passed away and thus replaced them. It's incredibly creepy, I know, but incredibly useful at the same time. You see, when you have a fount of information about the life and death of every person that's ever lived in this town, you start to get weird ideas. Suddenly, the random assortment of names you see here in the graveyard are not so random anymore. You start recognizing them, connecting each name with an obituary. They are not just names anymore. You start recognizing them for the lives that they had, their families, their occupations, their wealth. Wealth that they hung around their necks and that probably got buried with them. And that's how I actually pay rent. I started off as a librarian and accidentally stumbled into a grave robbing gig. So as you can imagine, ever since I took on this new line of work, I started to pay closer attention to the daily obituaries. The interesting article that I came across just so happened to be one of these. It was considerably longer than the others. Instead of taking up one column, it took 3. The person that passed away didn't just pass away. They were murdered, brutally so, in a crime of passion. They were stabbed in their bed as they slept by their partner. The press didn't really spare any details about the murder. They described every morbid little detail, from the mess of gore that was their bed, to the amount of stab wounds littered across their body, to the agonizing, terrified expression that was forever drawn on their face. As I kept reading, I realized that aside from the circumstances of their death, this person's life wasn't anything out of the usual. For my purposes, this person wasn't particularly interesting. They lived a happy, comfortable life, surrounded by the people that they loved. They weren't from a wealthy family, they didn't work any interesting jobs. They were a dime a dozen, just a normal person that suffered a terrible death. Until I saw their picture. They had this sweet look in their eyes. The kind of look that messes with your brain chemistry, that tugs at your heartstrings and makes you want to strangle them until they pass out. Suddenly it made an awful lot of sense why their partner did what they did. I think I fell in love. I wouldn't really know, as I've never loved anyone before, but if a cold-hearted, grave-robbing psychopath could feel love, I bet it feels something like this. I had to meet them, had to dig them up. As you've probably come to know, you don't really die when you die. I learned this the hard way, in the scariest way possible. Let's just say the term grave robbing is a lot more literal than you'd think. Knowing what I know, knowing this is what happens when you die. The idea of such a sweet-looking person forever tossing and turning inside of a coffin, well, I couldn't bear the thought. So I grabbed my tools, moseyed on over here, and got to digging. Okay, I'm almost done here. I just gotta get this open. Gotta psych myself up for this. Opening the thing is always the toughest part. It's heavy and lodged in there, and it smells like all hell. Alright, here I go. Okay, there we are. There are those sweet, beautiful eyes. And there's that agonizing, terrified expression